rainy hilltop somewhere is my co-host Joel McCall.
Hello, hello. Yep, and this rain is wonderful.
Yes, that and the lack of 100-degree temperature.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We got kind of an interesting guest today, and I think people may recognize his voice as soon as he starts talking. At least they should if they're fans of any teams around here in Central Texas. So without further ado, let me introduce Bill Schoening. Good afternoon, Bill.
Good afternoon. Nice to be with you, fellas.
That's the voice right there. How you doing, Bill?
Rocking and rolling, my friend. Just taking it one day at a time, trying to get through the pandemic like everybody else. Unfortunately, the Spurs didn't make the playoffs this year, so that gives me a lengthier offseason than normal, which is very strange because I've been with the team for 19 seasons. This is the first time they haven't made the playoffs. They made it 22 straight years, which is an NBA record. They tried to fill up the 76ers for that mark. So now it's just writing more songs, and all my songs, as you know, Joel, are million sellers. I've got a million in my cellar.
It's a big seller, dude.
It is a bunch of stuff down there. I've even got some that are trying to get out of the closet for some reason. So got them everywhere.
Well, going back to the playoffs, I want to ask you a question. What was life in the bubble like?
Well, I didn't go to the bubble. None of the local broadcasters went to Orlando. The local guys all stayed in their respective cities. We did our games from the arena, from the AT&T Center in San Antonio, where local television, my broadcast, and our Spanish radio broadcast all emanated from the arena, and they had it set up very nicely. We each had a large 50-inch HD TV. TV had a couple of more bells and whistles because it was basically their broadcast. But it was very interesting. It was a little different because I had 41 years doing play-by-play. I had never done a remote broadcast, so it was something new for me. By the time the second or third game rolled around, we were pretty much into the groove and back into it, and it was almost like we were there.
Was there any lag time between the action and the picture? I mean...
Yeah, if you watch the game on television, we were about 15 seconds behind.
Okay.
But I was just describing what I saw in front of me, and I wasn't worried too much about the delay that someone else might have. But it was very interesting because you had to kind of learn where to look for certain things. I had my stat monitor, I had a statistician with me, I had my technician, my engineer. So I found myself relying on those guys a little bit more than I normally do because things were so different, at least at first. And then, like I said, by the second game, we pretty much had it down to a science.
Nice.
So tell us how you got into broadcasting.
Oh, wow. How long is this program? It's going to take a while.
As long as you want it to be.
When I was 10 years old, growing up in Philadelphia, and as you guys know, if you follow sports at all, Philly's a big sports city with a lot of passion. But by the time I was 10, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that is be on the radio and do games. I fell asleep one night listening to an announcer named Byram Som. He was an older guy, but he had a very melodic voice, very sing-song type play-by-play on baseball, and I just loved him. And I remember falling asleep one night when the Phillies were out in San Francisco, a late night West Coast road trip. And, of course, the Giants at the time had legendary names like Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and the Alou brothers and Orlando Cepeda. And I just remember listening to all those names. And I just thought, this is what I want to do. I want people to fall asleep listening to me on the radio. And unfortunately, that has come true. Many people fall asleep listening to me on the radio now.
Well, that's better than them falling asleep when you're playing music.
Either way. But my problem is a lot of people listen to me while they're driving their car. I don't want them falling asleep while they're listening to me driving the car.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've not only done the Spurs, but you did the Longhorns for a while, right?
Yeah, 12 seasons with the Longhorns. I like to say 36 seasons because it was 12 football, 12 basketball, and 12 baseball. In 01, I got a call from San Antonio, from the Spurs, and from their flagship station, WOAI. And it was like an old mafia movie. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It was just too good to turn down, especially when they said summer's off. I really enjoyed that part. So I went from having 2 weeks vacation to 4 months vacation. So that was a no-brainer.
Well, that had been your goal all along, though, was to have a pro position, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I had an opportunity to do some Major League Baseball. I had the opportunity to do some National Football League. In fact, I did a game at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, which was really cool. But when it came down to it, the opportunity to go full time with an NBA team, it was really too good a job offer, like I said, to turn down. So I stayed in Austin. My wife got a very good job here in Austin. So I made the commute now for 19 years, which is an easier commute than most people will think, because I didn't have to go down there every day to an office job. I just went down for the games, and then also to drive down to catch the plane to go elsewhere when the team was on the road.
Nice.
So talk about your learning experience to get to this point, because obviously you don't just jump right into NCAA games.
It was a long and winding road, Joel.
There's a song.
Hey, there you go. Work on that, Joel. That might be a hit.
Okay.
I started in small market radio. I took the first job I could out of broadcasting school. When I graduated from broadcasting school, the American Academy of Broadcasting, Joel, you'll like their tagline, and to get people to come to the school, it was, "You want to learn how to sound like God?" So I did as a matter of fact. Anyway, for 6 months, I took a very extensive class learning board ops, how to write, how to pot up a record, run a 4-channel mixer board, all those things that you need in small market radio. And I got a job right away in a little town in Illinois. I went there for about a year. There wasn't a lot of play-by-play opportunity there, so I did some high school basketball. I did a little junior college there for a few ball games. But I got enough on my tape to get a job doing high school football, basketball, and baseball out in West Texas. So I moved to a little town called La Mesa. I was there for 3 years, where I was the voice of the La Mesa Golden Tornadoes.
Mm-hmm.
But I was getting a lot of experience. I wasn't making much money. But that station did so much sport that I felt like a grizzled veteran by the age of 24, and I was good enough to get a college job at that time. That was Sam Houston State over in Huntsville, Texas. I was there for 6 years. I tell people I was in Huntsville for 6 years. They always ask me what I was in for. And I wasn't in, I was out. But I did go to death row a lot, believe it or not, because I had to cover the prison system.
Okay, so I got to stop you right here. You told me a story one time of covering an execution that had me in stitches, and I was wondering if you could give us a little sample of the execution coverage.
Okay. Well, on a serious note, in order to do sports, I had to do news as well. So small market radio, that's the way it works. You got to wear many hats and be skilled in a lot of different things. So I somehow got the news beat. So part of the news beat, obviously, if you're in Huntsville, is to cover the prison system, because that's where the prison system is based. So therefore, I covered 29 lethal injections.
God.
Well, after one of the executions, my boss asked me if we could get sponsorships for the execution coverage. And I thought that was a little macabre. So I suggested, what shall we do here? Shall we, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the execution, brought to you by Kentucky Fried Chicken. For that last meal, make it Kentucky Fried Chicken. Let's take a look at the standings. Texas leads Louisiana by 3 executions. Florida, they're in 3rd place. There are 5 executions off the pace. But, Florida, let's be honest, guys, they've been hurt the last few weeks by that last-minute appeal to the governor. So we never actually got sponsorship for the execution coverage. I'm very happy about that.
I am so glad to hear that. That's awesome.
A hard one to explain. But yeah, so after that, you somehow wound up making your way to Austin?
Yes. While I was in Huntsville, the last year I was there, I got an opportunity to do Texas A&M baseball. And it's only 50 miles from Huntsville over to College Station. And it was just a little part-time thing, but the baseball team was really good. In fact, they were #1 in the country. Their star player was a guy named Chuck Knobloch, who later played for the New York Yankees and Minnesota Twins. He was a very good player.
Didn't he have a hard time throwing to first base?
Yeah, he did. In fact, they moved him to second base from shortstop when he got to the majors. And he had just one of those mental hiccups where he had a hard time. Yeah. It was like the pitcher Steve Blass from the Pittsburgh Pirates, who was a great pitcher, lost the strike zone one time and could never get it back. He could never throw a strike. It was a strange thing. But anyway, I was at A&M just for a real brief period of time. But while I was there, I got to know a guy named Tom Dorr, who was the sports director at KLBJ in Austin. And Tom had an opening that summer, and 65 guys applied for the job, and I got it. And shortly after I got hired, Tom left to go be the voice of the Missouri Tigers, and boom, I'm on the Longhorn Network. So it worked out pretty quick. I was an overnight success after 10 years.
Nice. So from there, you told us how you got to the Spurs. What's your regular season look like for the Spurs? I mean, how many out-of-town trips are you on? What do you...
Well, during regular times, Bob, these, of course, are not irregular times, but during a regular year, it'd be 82 games. We usually play about 5 or 6 preseason games. Then 82 games, which are divided, 41 on the road and 41 at home. The Spurs have a very unique situation in that during the month of February, we're out of town because the rodeo, the San Antonio Livestock Show and Rodeo, takes over our building. So they kick us out for about, 3 weeks to a month. And so we have this extended road trip. Thank goodness for us, the All-Star break is during that time. So it's not like we're out on the road for a full month. We come back and then we'll go back out again. But that's a very unique deal. So as Joel knows, I've written 3 rodeo road trip songs. Because on one of the road trips, I brought my guitar and just decided to, strum and try to figure something out. So I wrote a song called 8,900 Miles because that's how far we were going on that trip. And then I wrote one called Adios Auf Wiedersehen, which is all the different ways to say goodbye in different languages because we were going to be gone for so long. And then a third one I wrote is called It's February. It's February, we're out on the road, and so that passed the time along a little bit when you bring your guitar on the road. But those rodeo road trips are fun. And then, of course, the playoffs. So after the 82 games, and up until this year, the Spurs had made the playoffs each of my years. And so it's a little strange this year not to have them in the postseason, but they've been very consistent. They've got the best winning record in the entire NBA during my stretch with them. I have nothing to do with that, of course, but it's been fun to be along for the ride.
No, so that's one of the things that, when I was reading up on you, I noticed since you have an extended time off every year, you have a little hobby you like to play with, or I guess it's more than a hobby, kind of a passion, your music.
Yeah, in fact, Joel helped me out a lot with this because
now, don't you go putting that blame on me, Bill.
Yeah, Joel encouraged me, and if it wasn't for Joel, I probably wouldn't be a poor singer-songwriter. But no, I think we all have a passion for music, and I always like putting lyrics together. And I've got some really good friends. One is a guy named Nick Whitworth. Joel, you know Nick.
Yeah.
He's a worship leader at Bethany United Methodist Church here in Austin, and he's a very talented guy. Play guitar, banjo, piano, keyboard, everything. He play everything. And he's a really good producer. You want that in a producer because if you want a certain sound. In fact, I just got out of the studio with him, Joel. I wrote a song about Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Oh, yeah.
Former heavyweight champion. So we wanted to go back into the 70s, get kind of a funky feel, get a little clav going, kind of like a Stevie Wonder keyboard thing. Reminds me, and now I'm not Stevie Wonder, don't get me wrong, but kind of reminds me of Superstition a little bit. That kind of
Nice.
And I sent it to a friend of mine earlier today, and he said, "Hey, man, is that Billy Preston on keyboards?" I said, "No, but that's kind of the feel we're going for, the little Billy Preston feel." Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, yesterday was Billy Preston's birthday.
Oh, cool. The 5th Beatle, right?
That's it.
Yep.
So I want to ask you, because there's one thing that just totally amazes me about the way you do your job. Now, this is going back to calling basketball.
Okay.
It's you do not have, generally speaking, it's just you. You don't have a color guy with you. You are describing the entire game the entire time. And it is a nonstop game, and I'm just amazed at how you keep that picture moving. So kind of describe how that feels in your head.
Well, I've been doing it for so long. It's kind of second nature. But caffeine is to credit. I must admit that I do the hot tea thing. I'm big into the hot tea. So I make sure that I get my English breakfast hot tea going. And then I just go. Because with the 24-second shot clock in the NBA, there's really not a lot of time to get an analyst in there on the radio. Television's a lot different because the TV play-by-play guy can lay back, let the pitcher tell the story, let the analyst tell stories. I don't have that option, so I've got to pretty much do the play-by-play the whole time. I do have a very good studio analyst or studio host in Chris Gould, so I can throw it to him to break it up a little bit. But when the action's going on, I'm basically describing it. But it's something I've been doing for a long time. I've been doing basketball for 41 years now, so it's not really a challenge to me. It was a challenge when we went and did the games remotely, because that was something different I had never done before. But when it comes to just sitting down and describing a game, obviously prep work is very important, Joel. You can't go into a game cold. It's just like anything else. You got to be prepared. So that's where all the work really takes place, is before the game, getting the lineups, getting the stats, the background information about each player, when they were drafted, where they went to school, that sort of thing. And that way you're armed and ready to go when you start the broadcast. Describing the game is really, to me anyway, the easy part.
Cool. So out of the whole NBA, all of the different radio teams, how many are just solo guys like you? Is that the majority of them, or?
No. Most guys have an analyst. I think
Okay.
there's only 8. I think there's 8 guys in the league that don't have an analyst. So I'm one of those 8 guys.
So do you ask to get paid double?
No, I don't. I have a couple of times tried to negotiate by the word to get paid by the word, and that didn't work either. So, the good thing is we have these foreign guys. We have a lot of international players. So I try to learn a little bit of their language. So I try to make the calls. Like
Très bien.
Yeah, très bien for Tony Parker. Manu Ginobili, that's a Manu Tres. So I tried to have some fun with it. We had a player from Serbia named Boban Marjanovic. I don't know why this happened, but in a preseason game, he slammed it down, a slam dunk. And I said, from Serbia with love. And I say that, right? So after the game, I asked Boban, I said, hey, like when you slammed it down, I said, from Serbia with love. He goes, this I like this. From Serbia with love. You keep saying that. I like that. So Boban's 7'4" and 290. Boban, if you like it, I'll stick with it. That's okay. So, great guy.
How much time and how hard is it to learn these foreign names? I mean, that's
a good question, Joel. There's usually a pronunciation guide that comes with each game. Now, the guys in the NBA, I know. The real problem is the guys that we play in the preseason for foreign teams. For instance, we played a team from Fenerbahce Ulker. That's in Istanbul. And we were actually over there to play them. And their lineup included Mele Mamutolu, Nemanja Bjelica, Serhat Seten, Ogos Savas, and that's just the fun guys. Emir Prelzic was one of their players. We played a team from Greece, and their star player was Lakis Mavrakopoulos.
I'm pretty sure you're just making this up.
Yeah.
No, I can't make this up, They had a player, the Greek team had a player from Lithuania. His name was Sarunas Jasikevičius. So our Spanish play-by-play guy, Publio Castro, said to me, hey, Billy, I don't know, how do you say this name? I said, Jasikevičius. He said, is it like, yes, we have cabbages? I said, yeah, like, yes, we have cabbages. So he was real proud of himself after the game. He came up and he goes, guess who had 16 points tonight? Yes, we have cabbages.
That's great. That's awesome.
Since you've been in this for a number of years, I'm sure the layout of the studio has changed immensely over time.
The studio, I'm not really in the studio very much.
Yeah, broadcast booth.
I'm at the arena. Now, our location has changed. A few years ago, the NBA allowed teams to sell those courtside seats. So radio, for the most part, got kicked upstairs, which is fine because I've done so many baseball and football games through the years. I'm not uncomfortable being upstairs. I think some of the older NBA guys that weren't used to being at mid-court level upstairs at the concourse level, they had a little harder time with it. But I can call the game. As long as I can see the game, I can call it. So I've got a little different vantage point. I'm up angled a little bit at home, but it's okay. No problems. I got used to it right away. And you got a lot more room up there. You can meet fans a little bit easier. So, yeah, to be honest, I'd rather be courtside, but I don't mind being upstairs at all.
So you and I are obviously have known each other for a while, but it seems like the broadcasting bug must be genetic. Tell me about your boys.
Oh, okay. Well, Eric is the older boy. He never really got into broadcasting, but he did get into meteorology. And he's much smarter than me. He took physics. I can't even spell physics. So, but he's been with the National Weather Service now since 2007, so 13 years. And he's doing a great job with them. He's been in Salt Lake City the whole time with them. My younger son, Carl, he wears many hats. He's worked for Texas State in the athletic department doing digital media. He'll be doing high school football this year at Georgetown High. He co-owns a company called SHN Sports, and what they do is they live stream high school and college sports. So the Southwestern University Pirates, for instance, he did them last year, but unfortunately, Southwestern's not going to play football this fall. So if they do it in the spring, Carl will probably be doing their games. So he's going to do Georgetown High School this year. And he also teaches yoga. So he's got a lot of different things going on. He's a multifaceted kind of guy.
And he's living here in Austin?
Down in San Marcos. Yeah, because he's working at Texas State. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. You get to be father and son. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention he does the Austin Spurs. So that's the G League affiliate of the San Antonio Spurs, and they play out at the HEB Center in Cedar Park. And Carl's been part of their broadcast now for 3 years.
Nice.
Sweet. So, I'm going to turn it over to Joel for a minute because I'm blanking out, and I'm going to mark that spot.
So tell me about your music. You are incredibly prolific. And it seems like every time I go to Facebook, you have a new song. That may be an exaggeration, but I'm very happy to see you embrace that the way you do, because you have a passion for it more than many people I know.
Well, I think, Joel, my background is in sports, but I've always had a lot of musician friends. Even before I picked up a guitar or thought about writing lyrics or anything like that, I've always had a lot of musician friends. A good friend of mine in Philadelphia, Ken Tweeter, is kind of a local legend there in Philly. The singer-songwriter and troubadour. So, as you know, and I'm really a big fan of singer-songwriters. And that's one of the reasons why I love Texas music so much, because KNBT out of New Braunfels, for a long time, long before they had apps out and streaming services, I would listen to that station on the way down to San Antonio and hear great singer-songwriters like Robert Earl Keen and Jimmy LaFave and a lot of Americana-type artists. So I get inspired when I hear good lyrics and a good melody. So I like doing that. As I mentioned earlier, I've got a lot of musician friends who help me out with my songs. So if I come up with an idea or a hook or a melody, I'll try to write some lyrics down to match that melody. And then I'll call Mike Vasquez, who's a good guitar player, or Nick Whitworth, who's a great producer and piano player, and say, hey, man, can you help me out with this? I got this going. So they've been awesome in terms of helping me get some of this music out.
Well, you got my number.
Thank you, Joel. I like your stuff too, man.
So I noticed your music, though, like you were saying, there's a lot of different influences and a lot of different styles that you like to play.
Yeah, I grew up in Philly, so that Philly soul stuff kind of stuck with me. The old Philly soul, Delphonics, Stylistics, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, of course, I think, in my mind, is the most underrated soul singer ever, because I would put him in the top 10. I mean, seriously, right up there with Al Green and Otis Redding and Marvin Gaye. Teddy Pendergrass, in his prime, is just, he's one of my faves. I'm a little biased there because he's a Philly guy, but always liked him. And then that evolved into kind of a singer-songwriter thing. I like Jackson Browne and Bruce Springsteen, Al Stewart, not Rod Stewart, Al Stewart, although I like the Faces, but I didn't like a lot of Rod's later stuff. But, Hot Legs, really? Come on. So, but I liked his earlier stuff with Faces, which is really cool. When Ian McLaughlin moved to Austin, I got to meet him, and I didn't really hang with him very much, but I met him several times. And, unfortunately, he passed a few years ago, but what a cool guy he was. But just to be able to, have that background, and then I moved to Austin, and so much talent here. I mentioned Jimmy LaFave earlier, and Jimmy and I became really good friends. I would get him into ball games, he would get me into gigs. But and I got him to sing backup on one of my songs, and I thought it was great to have him singing backup on one of my tunes. But I paid for it dearly for the rest of his life because he died in 2017. But anytime I went to one of his shows, he would really point me out, embarrass me, and say that the low point in his music career is when he sang backup for me.
Oh, please.
That's Jimmy.
You loved it.
When I was first starting to write songs, I would call Jimmy on the phone and bang out some basic chords. Hey, what do you think? And he'd always have the same response. I like where you're trying to go with that.
Nice.